Guys, good morning. Happy Tuesday. It's Daryl here. It's 4 a.m. bright and early here in Connecticut on the East Coast. All right, I want to get right into this. Yesterday, I watched the closing arguments from the Derek Chauvin trial. And, okay, the first thing I want to talk about, I can't believe I hadn't thought of this earlier. As I watched the video of the officers struggling to get George Floyd into the vehicle, he was putting up a fight. He was talking about how he couldn't breathe. He was panicking. And I can't believe I hadn't thought of this. I hadn't remembered this earlier because I haven't used it for over 14 years. I was a hardcore, full-blown opiate addict using heroin, morphine every day. I was up to 10 bags of heroin a day just to function. After one or two times that you use opiates, it's a euphoric experience. But then after that, your body quickly needs it within a couple of uses, and there's no more euphoria. Your body and your mind need it just to function. You do not sleep. You won't sleep. I can't even describe to you guys the horrific what happens when the body withdraws from opiates, okay? And George Floyd, for all intents and purposes, was addicted to opiates. Fentanyl was in his system. And his ex-girlfriend talked about his previous problems with trying to quit fentanyl and opiates. And I suddenly remember this. I can't believe I hadn't thought of this before. I remember my interactions. I've been arrested by the police. I don't know. I had interactions where I'd been searched and handcuffed and arrested. And let me tell you guys, the very first thing, the panic that sets into my mind is that I think about when I got my last fix. That's what I would think about, and how long before I would draw. That was the first thing I would think of when I would run into officers. Because if I get handcuffed and go into prison, I'm not going to be able to function. And then it's a panic, because in my mind, this is what I used to picture in my mind. I've never been on a prison bus, but I picture laying on the seat. I picture being in a cell and not being able to get up, messing myself. Stuff coming out of every orifice. That's what happens. You can't sleep. You literally cannot stand up. Your mind doesn't function. It's not just physical. It's emotional, mental, physical, and you don't sleep for days. You are an invalid without a doubt. And I remember I had forgotten about this. The panic. That's one of the biggest things. You talk to any opiate addict. And the biggest reason they don't worry about the prison sentence really, or the record or anything. The biggest worry when an opiate addict interacts with the police is that he can't get the next fix to function. It's a panic. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to survive in a lockup. I'm going to be nothing but a pile of flesh laying on the floor. I'm going to be susceptible to whatever the other inmates or the prison or whatever anybody wants to do to me. I'm not going to be able to fight back. And this is going to go on for a good 2 weeks. In prison, in jails, they do not give male prisoners anything for withdrawals. It is just, you are an invalid. You are a pile of vomiting, diarrhea. You don't sleep for days, convulsions. And I remember picturing this when I would interact with police, and I would do anything. I would beg them, please don't arrest me. I would lie. I would make up any excuse because I can't go to jail. I cannot go through that. That will be the end of me. I won't even be able to defend myself. I remember that panic. It's all that goes through an addict's mind. And let me remind you guys, that addiction is an illness. It's a disease. When I saw George Floyd panicking, all of a sudden, I remembered that. And his whole thing that he can't breathe in the back of the car. And I remember I would picture laying on a prison bus on the seat and just imagining throwing up and everything. And just the rest of the prisoners, I'm just they could do whatever they want to me. I would be able to defend myself, or in a cell. And I see George Floyd panicking. I can't breathe, panicking. And I remember, I'm like, oh my God, I know what he's feeling right there. Nobody's brought this up during the trial. Now, this is something that really, and only somebody that's been through it can relate to, but it's very real. Nothing else matters at that moment. When you are an addict and you're dealing with the police and you're going to be arrested, it doesn't matter. They could lock me up for the rest of my life. They could feed me bread and water. None of that matters. But please do not let me go through withdrawals for the next month, 2 weeks, whatever, in prison. Please. It is horrific enough to lay in a comfortable bed in a hospital or in your own bedroom. It is horrific to just go through that in a comfortable setting. To go through that in a prison or a jail and be totally at the mercy of anyone around you is a terrifying thought. And I see that with George Floyd in the back of that car. I realize that panic. I can't breathe. Oh my God. I'm like, I know that feeling. I remember that feeling. Nobody talked about that. People that don't understand that just see somebody that did wrong and doesn't want to be held accountable for it. He passed a fake 20. He needs to be accountable. He's faking. No, man. Trust me. That dude is not faking at all. If I remember, I remember correctly, and he was, George Floyd, for all intents and purposes, was an addict. This played a big role in his panic and his not being able to breathe. All right, let me move on now. The video of him laying there 26 times, he says he can't breathe. Still, the knee stays on the neck. And then I remember, this is the first time I heard the audio. And George Floyd is saying, I can't breathe. And Chauvin says something along the lines of, well, if you can complain, you can breathe. Something like that. And George Floyd says, I can't breathe again. And you hear Chauvin just go, whatever. And you see his hand picking at the stones in the tire. Yeah, whatever. You can't breathe. And I just watched that with horror. And you see George Floyd's face in these videos. His eyes rolling back. And then, after there's no pulse, you hear the spectators, you hear the other cops, you hear the EMT saying, I have no pulse. And still, the knee stays on the back of the neck. No pulse. There's no pulse. And this officer, why would he do that? No pulse. For all intents and purposes, this man's dead. Right? So, I don't think dead men put up a fight. I don't think they resist. Why has he still got the knee on the back of the neck? For what purpose? To make sure that he's dead. What other purpose? Why else? There is no other reason. After there was no pulse. That right there. And if you listen to the defense says, he tells the jury, I want you to concentrate on what happened before, the 9 minutes and 30 seconds before he passed away. Don't think about the time after. There was no pulse. And Chauvin kept his knee on his neck, on a dead man's neck. The defense knew to pull away from that. Don't think about that. All right, let's move on to Mazine Waters and the judge. All right, Mazine Waters is an American citizen. Not only that, she's an African-American citizen. And she has every right to be worried about what the outcome is going to be. She was expressing something I'm sure she's expressed over and over again many times. She's an American citizen. She could do that. And here's the thing. She's a representative of the people in the legislative branch of the government. She's an American citizen representing other American citizens. And she's expressing her fear of what has happened time and time again. She has every right to do that. But the judge, I don't understand why the judge made a point of giving the defense a way to win their trial, even if their client is convicted. Well, you can overturn it. You can overturn it now because this lady said something. So the judge, if he just ignored it, it would have gone away. These people can't be exposed to TV, to newspapers, to any press. They can't talk to each other about the trial. But the judge, with all those things in place, brings the news into the courtroom and tells everybody there. So if anybody is influencing, it's the judge making an issue of this. And since when does the judge give legal advice to the defense on how to win a case or how to overturn a case that hasn't even been convicted yet? I'm going to talk a lot more about this. I see I'm running long on time. I got a lot more to talk about. I'll be back later with another video, especially if the verdict comes out today. All right, you guys have a great Tuesday.